We're close enough here. We'll go ahead and get started. Come on in. Feel free to, there's handouts at the door if you haven't got them. Welcome everybody. Thank you for coming. My name is Jameson Barrett. I'm the city administrator here in Madison, and with me I have Mike Plooster. He is the utilities director. Obviously we're here to talk about the potential digital currency mining facility that's in Madison. A lot of people are referring to it as a data center as well. It is a type of data center. We'll be able to get into that as well. So we want to spend we got 20, maybe 30-minute presentation here. Happy to answer a few questions, but then we really want to have the opportunity to mingle around, let you guys ask questions one-on-one. We've got a few posters and visuals here that can help to facilitate those questions as well. But we'll start with this presentation, and then at 6:15 in 1 hour, we'll be doing the same presentation again in case there's other folks that couldn't make it at this time. So to start, we'll just show an overview of what we're going to present today. There we go. So we're going to go through the different types of data centers. I think that's pretty valuable for everybody to know what we're looking at, what we're not looking at. And we're going to move into the proposed project for Madison, the location that we're looking at. And then a lot of the slides we're going to look at are going to be the timeline for this process, where we've been so far, what we've looked at, where we're going next, as well as a construction timeline for a potential project and our substation that is moving forward. And then we'll end it with considerations both for financially for the city of Madison as well as environmental and safety considerations with this type of project. So, first thing to handle, I will let Mike talk about the types of data centers.
Yeah, so the couple types of data centers that we've been hearing about is digital currency mining facility, which we've been talking a lot about in Madison. And then we have the artificial intelligence data center, which we are not considering. What we are considering is the digital currency mining facility, minimal water usage for an office or a bathroom, sink, stuff like that. Scalable load as small as 10 megawatts, and then it has a small physical footprint. Now we get into the AI data centers. They have high water and sewer usage, something that we are not interested in, and hundreds of megawatts, which we do not have the capacity for. And they also have just a massive large footprint. So something that the city of Madison could not ever think about doing with the capacity that we do have. So just to make the two distinctions between the two, the digital currency mining facility is what we are looking at, and the AI data center we are not looking at. So the project size and location, moving on to the next slide here. We're looking at 3.75 acres. It is with Giga Energy Facility is who we've been speaking with. From what we understand, it's about four to six shipping container type prefabricated buildings that will be on site to get to the 10 megawatts. They would be operating most likely 24/7 for their operating hours. And then most of all, they look for property that's close to a substation. And the reason be for infrastructure and just for ease of the city as well.
Yeah, in expanding on that, we've gotten good questions from the public of, why can't this be located somewhere else? We've got the industrial park. From the city's perspective, we'd be happy to see it go industrial park. We have no concern with that, but we know that it's not likely that any mining facility is going to want to locate there because we're going to be putting the costs of the connections to our system on them, and they're not going to want to pay to run those cables a mile to connect into our system. So we're just looking at this realistically. We know that this would be the most likely property that they would look at since it's next to our substation.
Is this being videoed so people who aren't here can get
the great question.
Information?
Yep, so, and I'm going to repeat this because we do have people streaming online, and so the question was whether this was being videoed. And so we're going to video both this presentation and the 6:15, and it's going to be available on our Facebook, our YouTube, all of our usual sites. And so I imagine we probably have folks listening right now online, and we will get into the 6:15 too. Good question. I'll jump into the process now. So where we've been, it starts with Heartland Energy, and some of you are probably familiar with Heartland. They've got offices in our town. They're a close partner for the city. So I'll explain first that the city is the utility provider. We're the ones that you probably know if you need to make a utility payment, if you want to connect to, if you move to a new house, you want to connect into that accounts. You come to this building or you call in, and we get you set up for those utilities. So we're the electric provider, but we don't generate the power ourselves. We have to get that from somewhere. So Heartland Energy is our partner, as they have ownership in generation facilities, and they, as part of their services to all their customer communities, they probably have I'm going to say 15 or so within South Dakota. They are always looking for opportunities for economic development to help their customer communities to grow more in not just electric, but in other ways as well. And so Heartland identified mining facilities as an opportunity to assist their customer communities with economic development. And as they do that, they don't just jump in and say, we're gonna bring them, but they start with doing a lot of research and collecting information. They look at comparisons to other communities, other states, trying to find ways to make sure that if they want to incentivize mining facilities, that we're gonna do this in the right way. And they also network with potential mining facilities. Oftentimes, these businesses are looking for places to locate, and so they'll reach out to Heartland, other utility companies, to try to find the best locations to be located in. And Heartland, through that process, they don't just take all of them and pass them along to the city of Madison. They vet them. They make sure that they're finding good companies. You know, these are good companies. In this case, this is an American-made and bred and owned company. It's not something that you know, a Chinese company that they're going to be bringing to us to pass along. And so they take all information. They take those partnerships that they've gathered, and they've developed a data program, and that's a special rate program. You can jump to the next slide here. A special rate program that their customer communities can adopt. And Michael, tell a little more about that. Nope, I will tell more about that. I'm missing my own notes. So a data program is an interruptible load, and that's really important to note because most companies, most people, they don't want to sign up for service and tell their electric provider that we can shut them off or reduce their load if there's a natural disaster, emergency, or some kind of high demand situation. Mining facilities are a little different because they are willing to do that if they have a better rate charge to them. So with an interruptible load, this data program allows cities like us to attract a mining facility, and they get a pass-through on energy charge and transmission costs, and then we add on a 1 cent per kilowatt hour adder onto that so that our community can still receive a benefit from that mining facility. The interruptible load is important because if we have another derecho come through, a term that a few years ago nobody knew of, and now I feel like we still refer to regularly. If we have a derecho come through, another natural disaster, and our power is at risk, we can interrupt their load, bringing them from 100% down to 3%, and that's just enough for them to keep the lights on and keep things working. And then that allows us to make sure that power is available to other customers and elsewhere in the community. Mike, would you have anything to add there?
No, I think you did pretty good. The interruptible load, yeah, like you said, even if we have, it doesn't have to be a natural disaster or anything like that. If we have substation issues, a transformer goes down and we need to shift the load over to our other two substations, that's another instance where we could shut them down to that 3% and bring that capacity back to us so we can use it for the residents. And that's one thing I do want to point out is that, you know, we want resident reliability as our main focus, and we can do that with this interruptible load. We can shut them off if the city requires us to need more electricity. Okay, so the process timeline for the city of Madison. So what we did, we looked at is spoke to Heartland, and we adopted their data program. I do want to let you know that the data program does not mean we have to use it. It just means that if we do bring on a load of this size or a load of this type, that we're going to follow the data policy. Okay, so that we've identified potential city property right next to the southeast substation, which is about 200 feet away it would be the point of interconnect is about 200 feet away. So it's a great location, nice and close, right next to the substation. After we've identified, we approved a letter of intent with Giga Energy and Heartland so we could further our conversations with them with more proprietary information, so the questions that we get from residents or questions that we may have, we can get those answered and we can move forward with these talks with that LOI in place. So I'm going to move into the letter of intent. That, like I said, it does allow city and the Giga and Heartland to move forward with discussions. It sets expectation on system improvements, reserves, responsibilities of the parties. It does not commit either party to enter into an agreement. anything to add to the?
No, I think that covers it.
Okay.
Okay, so the next step in the process that the city is involved with is engaging the community, and that's where we're at. That's why we've got these town halls scheduled, and we've got other opportunities as well for engagement. We're always here if people want to stop in, pick up a phone, drop us an email, ask us any questions, or provide us their feedback on it. So that's where we're at right now, and that's a really critical step in the process. The next step then is to rezone the property, and before I jump into that slide, I'll note that several of these steps are, I don't know if you look at them as circular or we can jump back and forth, but we engage with the community, we proceed to another step, and through that, we're still engaging the community, and we'll probably circle back and forth until we're all at a good spot where we feel like we're comfortable moving forward. And so the rezone property is the next step, and the important thing to note there we go. So we got a map here shown, and I'll note that a few of these visuals are on the posters around here, so if there's something on the screen that you want to learn more about, you want to see, afterwards, feel free. Most of them are kind of up here on these easels. So the property that we're looking at is number 1. It's highlighted in yellow there, right in the middle. Currently, it's 2 parcels. The south parcel is larger. It's 3.25 acres. The north parcel is half an acre. Together, 3.75 acres. The larger one is currently zoned highway business, and the smaller one is currently zoned agriculture. And the proposal would move both those parcels to a light manufacturing zone. So you can see light manufacturing currently exists to the east of the property. Everything in red, the number 2, is light manufacturing. And then green, 3, the agriculture, and then the numbers 4 are the highway business. So we're looking at moving it from a 3 and a 4 into a 2. We do feel like there's a logic in this. It fits some of the surrounding properties with that light manufacturing. And some of the uses of the property, and we've got a map over here, this site as well. Our generation plant is a big factor there. It's right next door. That's a facility that we operate from time to time as needed. And then to the south, we have what I'll call a staging area for custom touch homes, as well as a concrete company. And we feel that this type of use would fit pretty well with the uses of those surrounding properties. All right, so jumping back to our timeline. So with the rezone, that takes 2 readings at a city commission level. It's already gone through planning commission, they've recommended approval, and then it comes to the city commission, and it takes 2 approvals from the city commission before that gets changed because it's an ordinance, and so it's got a higher level of scrutiny. So this next Monday is when the first reading is scheduled again to be before the city commission. Should it go through a first reading and a second reading and get approval, the next step then is to go back to the planning commission to receive a conditional use permit. And that planning commission is a body that is appointed by the city. It's 7 community members that live in town here, and they have final authority over the conditional use permit. Once they approve or deny, there's no further step than that. And so what is a conditional use permit? Well, any property in town based on the zone that it's in has permitted uses that are allowed, and you can come into the engineering office here, get a building permit, and if they sign off on it, that's all you need for it. It also had, each zone, each district also has a list of conditional uses, and that says that if you go to the planning commission, explain what you're wanting to do, they can look at each project on a case-by-case basis, and they can give you permission to do that use if you meet certain conditions that they set forward. So that's where the name conditional use permit comes from. So potential conditions that the planning commission could consider for something like this, I think screening is a big one. From my point of view, I think a project like this, the sound is a big concern, and we want to make sure that if something like that is going to be coming to Madison, that we've done everything we can to mitigate that. And if that meets the Planning Commission's approval, they could still require a fence around the property, not just for sound, but also for visibility. So I think screening is a big consideration that they'll look at. They could also look at setbacks, landscaping, trees. The list is pretty long as far as what types of conditions the Planning Commission could put onto this property. And if Gig Energy meets those conditions, then they are allowed to operate with that conditional use permit. There's still some more steps beyond this, but as far as the Planning Commission goes, this is kind of where it ends. I also will take a note here that we've talked about the zoning already. There's also another district from a zoning perspective. It's an overlay district, so these are districts that can lay on top of base districts or other districts. And so this is a district that we have on the southeast and northwest sides of our town along the highway. It's called Gateway Districts, and it basically states that we have additional standards for these properties that we want to be met, as these are areas that people are driving into town and they're high visibility. We want to make sure our community looks nice for them. And so a big requirement from that is how steel is used, and generally, these gateway districts don't like steel to be used. So they would need to go to Planning Commission for a variance on that, and that could be addressed through the conditional use process as well. So if Giga says, yep, we'll put up a fence that screens this off so you can't even see these metal containers, that may meet what the Planning Commission is requiring, but that's their discretion to look at. There's a few pieces that would probably be going on there at the same time with the Planning Commission. Okay, and then the last step in the timeline for what I'll call approval is for Giga to receive either a land lease agreement or some kind of sale agreement with the City Commission, as well as any other related terms and conditions that might be had. I say lease or sale because we haven't gotten that step yet. It's up to the city to negotiate with Giga on what kind of format they'd like, and it's up to the City Commission ultimately to agree on what that looks like. So we have this property that we own. We could sell it to them. We could lease it to them. I don't know what's going to be decided for certain. I think that it's more likely that a land lease would be the option that we'd go with. That allows the city to maintain some more control over the property, and it also gives us annual revenue that come through a lease agreement as well, as opposed to a one-time revenue source from the sale agreement. So I don't know which direction that we would fall on, but I would say that we probably would lean towards that land lease. Related terms and conditions, there might be other things. There might be other things that the city says, even after all these hoops have been jumped through, all these boxes have been checked, we still want X, Y, and Z. And I think a couple of those we'll touch on in a couple slides with the financial considerations. That's kind of the end of the process. So should all those steps be met, Giga Energy at that point would be allowed to operate a mining facility within Madison at that site.
Okay, moving into the construction timeline. These are all tentative. I want to talk about the city substation that we have, that we're going to be doing construction on. That's going to proceed no matter whether this comes along or not. That has been in the plans, in our infrastructure plan for the electric department since before I was here. We have East River that's coming into town, and they're building 115,000 or 115 kV loop around town, and right now we're 69 kV. So we need to upgrade our two substations to handle that 115,000 volts. So no matter what, the substation projects are still going to go on, and the estimated completion of those are August, September timeframe of 2026 for the southeast substation. For Giga Construction, I do want to note one thing with them, that they will be placed there on their own separate circuit. There is minimal infrastructure upgrades that have to be done to make that happen. And the reason we want them on a separate circuit is because they'll have their own protective devices, and they'll be completely separated from the city load. So if something happens within that mining facility that causes an outage, protective devices will react and take care of that and not affect our city residents. And that's our main goal, is to provide reliability for the residents. Ideally, we'd like to bring that online the same time if this goes through and if everything works out. Ideally, it would be good to bring it online the same time as a substation energization. There's a couple reasons for that. One reason is if we have to switch load off of that sub to put on our other two substations, then we're putting stress on our other two substations. So if we could bring that all on that line online at once, that would be a lot better. Okay, financial considerations, the impact to the electric rate for current customers. So how this works is, if we have to do any construction projects and we need to borrow money for that, we need to show a revenue source for that in the form of a surcharge, okay? All the infrastructure that's tied to this, anything that is professional fees, studies, electric studies, or engineering studies that need to be done, that is 100% paid for by Giga, or the mining facility that would come in. So those would have zero impact on the residents' rates, because we do not have to have a surcharge because they're paying for that infrastructure update.
Mike, do you want to, since we've talked about the studies, talk about the propagation studies that have already been done on our system?
So yeah, there's been studies done on, it's called an AQ request. Those have been done, requested through Heartland, to the Southwest Power Pool. What that does is that tells us if there's any spots on the transmission lines or anywhere else that need to be upgraded. East River has also done their study, which they're allowed to be a little more critical. And both of them, the findings from both of those are to get to the 10 megawatts, we don't have to do any system upgrades for that. Us as a city, we have also reached out to our engineering firm, DGR Engineering, and they have helped us out with that. And we have very minimals. We have to replace some cable from the substation and replace a switch to make that happen. That's all that is for infrastructure upgrades, which is paid for by Giga Energy. Okay? So the electric fund estimate, and again, I want to reiterate estimate, it's about $425,000 is what we're looking at right now.
And that's per year. We probably should add that on.
Per
there,
year,
too. It's an
yep.
annual.
That equates out to be approximately 3.5% of our metered sales. So what's that mean to us, right? We have 3.5%. That means we're gonna have downward pressure on our rates. If we can use that extra funds to pay down loans that we've had to take in for ourselves to build infrastructure and sunset those surcharges quicker. There's several things that we can do to keep that money in good use to affect our rates in a positive manner. So the general fund estimate, there's about $66,000 in sales tax revenue. And then the land lease will be to be determined at this point, because that is a negotiation point, whether it's sale or land lease or whatever it may be.
Yeah, and I'll add on to the electric fund and rates a little bit too, because we often hear from people who are concerned about electric rates, who don't like seeing their bills go up each year, and that's reasonable. I relate to that. I understand that. So a couple of years ago, we looked at our system, what improvements needed to be done, what rates would need to be collected in order to pay for those necessary improvements. And our engineering firm gave us a 5-year estimate on what those rate increases would be. And the option the commission went with, if I remember right, was the increases each year of 9%, 8%, 5%, 3%, and 3%. And so we implemented those first 2 years, and I will note that this year, when we were relooking those numbers and ran them again, that 8% that was planned for year 2 ended up being 5%. That's right? Correct. Ended up being 5%, which is good. So we were in a better position than we originally expected to be. Next year, according to that original plan, is still slated at that 5%, and that number very well could change. But when you have annual new revenue source such as this, and $425,000 coming per year, that's, as he said, it pushes downward pressure on rates. So I can't say what rates will happen next year, but we know that our rates with a data center will be lower than our rates without a data center. And that's the bottom line with where these numbers come into play to help our current customers. All right. Go ahead and jump to the next slide.
Okay. So some additional financial considerations is just some protections that we want to make you aware of for the city that we would look at as like a decommissioning reserve. What does a decommissioning reserve mean? Okay, what happens if they decide to leave? Well, we have them fund this reserve that funds the whole amount of getting that property back to its original state. That is put into account beforehand, and that will give us some sort of account control to where if they do leave and they just jet out of here, we have the ability to draw on that money. So that'll be in the form of cash, bond, whatever they do, but we will have control of that to be able to draw on that if we need to. The same thing with a reserve deposit to cover electric usage. That will be a larger bill. Most of the time they don't do monthly billing. They'll do weekly, bi-weekly, whatever, just to break that bill up so we're not carrying such a large amount. And that also has to have a reserve, which is something that we would negotiate in, that it just gives us more protection on the backside of it, because we don't want to have a lot of risk involved in this. We want to mitigate that risk so we can make it the best possible scenario for the city. And again, all other costs are covered by Giga. Professional services, anything engineering that has to do with that firm will be paid for by them. Anything that you would like to add on that?
Nope, I think you got it covered.
Okay. Okay, so environmental and safety considerations. One thing we want to talk about is electromagnetic field emissions, or EMF. The levels about these, from everything I have researched, it'll be about the same as if you're in an office building. The reason for that being is these containers, there's different variable factors that create these levels much lower because they're inside a container that will contain those EMF levels. There's screening around, conditional use, if they decide to put trees around it, all those shield from EMF levels, right? So you see outside, you see the substation has a lot of bare conductors. You see these transmission lines running through town, bare conductors. Those have higher EMF levels than what one of these sites will. I do not know the numbers right offhand right now, but all the research that I've looked at that has showed that. And we'll get into levels more when we engage with Giga at a later date. So the sound, I think we have the next slide. So decibel ratings, we did go out and take some decibel ratings with the gen plant running and without the gen plant running. And you can look at those, it's 98 decibels with the gen plant running right outside of the gen plant. It's 73 decibels without the gen plant running and the garage doors closed. Right up on the corner of that property on the very east side, it's 89 decibels while it's running and 66 decibels when it's not running. So you guys can look at those and you can see, and if you have any questions about the decibel readings, one example, with the decibel meter, I was sitting in the pickup with the heater turned up halfway, windows up, no music, anything on, and it was 73 decibels inside that pickup. So if that'll give you let you gauge some sort of level of where you need to start and where you can be at.
And then can you remind us where the,
Up to 80, 85 decibels
for Giga?
per giga on that site. And if we look at that sheet, it's 89 on the east side and 78 on the west side. So, I mean, if you look at it right in the middle, it's gonna be approximately 85, so it'll be the same noise level as what the gen plant approximately. Yes, sir?
The generating plant is at a much lower level than the peak of this lot you're putting it at, so
Yeah.
I think that peak is probably the highest point in Madison right now. The site where those containers will sit. The generation is behind the berm for much of that. Not a berm for that, but they carve out for when the substation and the generation building was built.
Correct, and that's,
Compare the generation building to this thing is not quite fair because unless they excavate a lot of dirt, those containers will be higher than the top of the roof on the generator building.
absolutely. I'll just reiterate what you said right there too. We're talking about decibel ratings on the generating plant and how it's sunk into the ground and it's got a hill on the one side to screen the sound coming out. That way, the decibel readings, it's not fair to rate the generating plant to this facility. Is that correct? Yeah, I would agree with that. And I don't think that was necessarily the intention of me doing that. It was for me just to get some levels because I know everybody in town knows the generating plant. They know what the sounds are, so I wanted to give you guys some levels of what they would be.
Will we be using like EGR, a third-party noise study, instead of, somebody different that comes in and studies this? Because I can hear it in my house, and the other day when we were out there, I can hear cars in my house, which is no big deal, I don't mind cars, but it's amazing on different, not scientists, but when it's cold out, man, that sound travels, and I can stand in my
I can hear
driveway in
the
the car.
generator inside my house.
Yeah, so when the car goes down the highway and I'm standing on my driveway, I can hear it, not a noisy car, just tire sound. So I think there's other considerations to noise, that we should have a third party,
Absolutely.
engineering.
Where do you two live next compared to on that map?
I'm right by the 70 decibel one.
Okay, you're right there.
And Jeff is just north.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll repeat that question again for those listening online. Question on whether we would hire a third party to do a sound study to learn more information on this. I think that's certainly something that we can consider. I don't know if that'd be something at the planning commission step or when that would be, but as I said earlier, I think sound is one of my main concerns with this, that we want to make sure that any sound that comes from this facility is mitigated to the best of our ability. And if that berm blocks off a lot of sound, we can look at what it would take for fencing or some kind of other screening to do that as well. It's a good question.
If
I-
the company pays for, the lines and infrastructure or whatever, going to their business, do they own those lines then that connect to our powerhouse or our substation or whatever?
The question is if they pay for the infrastructure, are they going to own the lines that are going into the, facility? And the answer is no. Any type of that medium voltage cable, we would own that, up to the transformers, yep. Yep, absolutely.
And the city will have the ability to shut it off
Yes,
without their consent.
so
If you decide we need it off, you can turn it off.
correct. So the question was asked that we can shut them off, if the city needs the power, correct? Absolutely. Yes, we can, yep.
And that is a good point for questions. That was the last content slide we had. So, again, I'll reiterate that I'd like to take 2, maybe 3 questions and then offer the chance for everybody to kind of mingle around, take a closer look at those. Feel free to talk to either of us or other staff that are around. But we'll take 2 or 3 questions and adjourn this one.
Is there any other city nearby that has this kind of installation?
Yeah, is there any other city nearby that has this? I would say largely no. Are data centers around? Yes. Is there a 10 megawatt data center nearby? Not that I know of. Pier would have one?
Pier has one.
Okay,
Yep.
I learned something new there.
How large is the one in Howard?
The
I
one
think
in-
it's 250K, or I think it capped out at 750K. Don't quote me on those numbers, but
Compare that to this one.
much
that-
smaller.
Much smaller. So we're looking at 10 megawatts, that's less than 1 megawatt.
Okay.
Yep.
I've talked to a couple people in Howard and they don't
Yeah.
even know it's there. They don't hear it, they don't.
Yeah, which is good to hear, but I think it's also a tough comparison because it's so much smaller what's being proposed here. As far as Giga Energy, they've got a good website, very educational. Feel free to Google them and you can find that. And they have a map on there. They've got a lot of facilities ranging from Texas up to Iowa, more in the south, but I think the closest one would be in Iowa, probably mid-Iowa is where Giga's closest facility would be.
I did look up Giga, and from what I gather, they sell the equipment that does all of this. They don't actually own the plant or the data mining facility, Bitcoin mining facility. Is that correct?
The question was, Giga builds the equipment to sell them. As far as I know, they do both. They do build the medium voltage transformers for substation, or the high voltage transformers for substations. They build the containers, and they also build the medium voltage for inside the park.
Will they be the ones that actually own it, or who will actually own this?
The question is, will they own it, or who will own that? That is a great question. When we move forward with conversations with them, like we said before, we've had one very, very minimal conversation before an LOI was signed. So once we get into these more proprietary talks, we can figure all of that stuff out, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And whether they sell it to somebody else, or if they would, for whatever reason, decide to pull out, what type of guarantees, because I know you said you had that fund, but if they pull out completely, do we still have that fund to recoup anything
So
that we need?
the question is, if they pulled out, you know that we have that fund, but will we be on the hook for anything? Is that correct?
Right,
So, no, that's what that fund is there for. That fund is to reserve fully restoring that property back to its normal state, to its original state.
in the contract, there would be something stated if they want to sell it, that our agreements would still stand, or if they sold it to somebody else, would we start over with new agreements of what they could and couldn't do?
So the question is if they sold it, would our contract still be in place? Is that correct? As far as I know, once we enter a contract, we haven't even started those conversations yet, but I would imagine once we have the contract in place, it's with that person for a certain amount of time, and that would stay that way.
Well, I'm gonna put Russ on the spot, cause I see him sitting back there. Will Heartland be the one that owns this facility?
I can answer that. It's no. Yeah. Russ is shaking his head no. So the question for those online was, would Heartland be owning this facility? And no, they don't. They sell us the power, and we sell the power onto Giga. And in this case, with the data center, it's a pass-through. We add on that 1 cent adder, but Heartland has no ownership over this facility.
Now, you come to that 1 cent, 1 cent per,
Per kilowatt, yes, 1 cent per kilowatt hour.
okay. does that mean they're gonna be paying residential rates for that electricity, or commercial rates, or what rate will they pay?
Yeah, what kind of rate are they paying? They're paying their own rate. It's a data rate. That's where this program comes into effect. It's adopted as a special rate for those who qualify, and that ends up being mining facilities because any other data centers aren't gonna wanna accept an interruptible rate. So it's not a residential rate, it's not a commercial rate, it's the data rate.
Data. So Heartland provides the power to the city, and then it just, that amount of power goes to that Bitcoin facility, and then they just get a 1% charge to the city.
Yeah, the question is how this power, flows through, and I think it's important to recognize that right now we buy power from Heartland, we also buy power from the Western Area Power Association, WAPA, and that all that power that we get from both of them is used for all of our current customers, and the mining facility, they would be having kind of their own separate, it'd all be tracked separately so it doesn't negatively impact our existing customers, or existing rates. And so the mining facility is all tracked separately, it's all Heartland power at that pass-through rate. WAPA power is less expensive than the Heartland power. That's why it's important for us to know that it's tracked separately. So some people wonder, well, if it all gets blended together, does that mean that we get less WAPA? No, all the WAPA that's going to the community now keeps going to the community. Does that make sense? I'll take maybe one more question.
I've already asked, but I don't think they will ask one.
No, you go ahead, yep, we got a lady here.
So in the letter of intent, it states at the bottom, the right-of-way and land control, they anticipate the need to secure the right-of-way access, right? And in there it says that they will, need additional real property reasonably necessary for the project outside of what is covered by the site. So does that mean that other property, like Custom Touch Homes or Buffalo Ridge, or maybe like Brian Kern's place, are gonna have to either sell or maybe like an eminent domain, or
Sure.
are they planning on making that right-of-way access?
Question is on right-of-way, how to get access to this property. So on the map over there that you see, there's a part of the road that stems off, Mike will be my Vanna White, thank you, Mike. And so that there is dedicated right-of-way. It's what we use currently to get to our property in yellow into the generating plant. And so that is right-of-way access that goes to this property. So the property already has the right-of-way access that it needs. A lot of the language that's in those types of agreements is standard to make sure that we know that if there is any need for additional right-of-way, that which party is responsible for it. And I'm assuming that's underneath the GIGA's responsibility section.
It's under the scope and cost estimates.
Oh, okay, yep. So, in this case, they're not gonna need any additional right-of-way to my knowledge, because they have that, and that's already present. I'm sure there's lots of questions, and we're here to answer every one of them, but like I said, I do wanna provide for an opportunity to mingle around and to let people come up, see the graphics we have here. We're gonna stick around and keep answering questions, and then at 6:15, we're gonna start this all over again. So welcome to stick around, or head out whenever you'd like. Thank you, everybody, for coming.